So we're going to go over all the different parts of the bike, starting at the top and working our way around. So what I think I'm going to do is see how much all of you already know, and have you call out what they are as I point to them. If you don't already know, I'll obviously tell you what it is. So let's work in sections, doing the frame first, and we'll label all the parts of the frame. Most of the frame is made up in tubes, and a lot of them, the word tube is in the name. Does anyone know what this part of the frame is called?
Top tube.
Yeah, this is called the top tube. Pretty easy to remember. It's the most top tube of all the tubes on the bike. So this is the top tube. All right. Moving along. This part is also part of the frame. It's also a tube. Do any of you know what this part is called? Take that. You want to tell us what it's called?
The tube under the seat. What do you guys think it's called?
Seat tube?
Yes.
That's absolutely right. It's called a seat tube. Whoever society of people or whoever decided the names of the parts of the bikes made it super easy. Some things are kind of weird, but a lot of names, a lot of the parts on the bike are named either by what they do or what they look like or anything like that. Now that I've said that, these two parts of the frame here are sort of an exception to the rule. And actually, if you want to highlight what parts are actually made up, make up the frame, so you all know. So this here, and then you have these two metal tubes here. These two are not as commonly known. Does anyone want to take a guess as to what these two are called? Any wild, crazy guesses? I'll give you a hint. They both help the frame to stay in place. This one sort of working with the seat, and so this one is closer to the chain. Now that I've said that, does anyone want to take a guess what this is called?
Is the top one the seat stay?
Yep.
And the bottom the chain stay?
Absolutely. So this part of the frame is called the seat stay. Without this metal tube here, the bike would sort of collapse this way, so it helps the seat to stay in place. So that's called the seat stay. And like Harry said, this one for the same reason is called the chain stay. It's near where the chain is located. All right. And this one here, anyone already know what this part of the frame is called? What's that? Bottom tube. A lot of people say that, and that would actually totally make sense, seeing as this is the top tube. You're very close. It does end in tube, but it's actually called the down tube. Bottom tube, down tube. You could get away with having it be the same thing pretty much, but it's called the down tube. Right, and then we have one more tube on the frame, which is this one right here. Seeing as sort of the general pattern of what everything is called. Another hint, this is another one that ends in tube. Anyone want to guess what this one's called? This one is called the head tube.
It really should be called the stem tube. It would make more sense.
Yeah, it would.
Or the fork tube.
All right, so all the shaded in parts, those are the different parts that make up the frame. Then after the frame, you have the next two major parts are the two wheels. And we're going to go go sort of more in depth with the wheels themselves and what makes up the wheels. So we'll do that next. So basically we'll have the wheels here. And then the rest of the parts are basically just the components of the bike. Again, we can sort of start at the top and work our way around. This is an easy one. What's this part called? What's that? The saddle? Exactly. I can never remember if it's 2Ds or 1. It's 2Ds. Thank you. My spelling is atrocious. Alright. So this is the saddle. Some people call it a seat, some people call it a saddle. If you go into a bike shop, they'll call it a saddle. So that's sort of the technical term for it. Right underneath the saddle, another one that's most people generally know.
The seat post?
Yep, seat post. On the diagram that you have, this part is labeled. Not really an essential piece of the bike, but this is just a reflector. All right, and then here's something that is really essential to the bike. You have a couple different parts here, but sort of the main thing that the line on the diagram is pointing to. Does anyone know the technical term for it?
Brake pads?
You're right, the brake pads are right here. What I assume the line is pointing to is pretty much the whole system, which is the brake caliper. So it's pretty much the functioning machine itself that's actually doing the work, which include the brake pads, which are mounted onto the brake caliper.
Is there anything wrong with just calling it the brake?
You can call it the brake. If you go into a bike shop and you want to get something fixed, it is really useful to make a distinction. Because sometimes if you say brake, a bike mechanic not so much, but someone who doesn't know as much about bikes, if you say the brake, they might think, which actually I didn't draw, they might think that you're talking about the brake lever and not the brake caliper. And we're also going to do another class where we talk about the brake system itself and go more in depth with that, and how you have the lever and the cable and the caliper. But on the diagram, you should have it labeled as brake caliper. All right. Moving along, you have this part here, which are the gears on the back wheel. They're usually two types. You can have a freewheel or a cassette. More generally, you can call it the gear cluster. So I'll label it as that. You can have all the way between just one single one, and you can have up to 12, so you can have a whole bunch of them. Then in sort of the similar area here, on the front, you have gears, which are sort of in the middle of the bike. These are called, this area here is called the chain ring. Again, you can have a range. Usually you either have 1, 2, or 3, usually depending on what kind of bike it is. So specifically, this part here is the chain ring or chain rings. Does anyone know what's these two parts that are sticking out of the chain ring? Any guesses?
Paddles?
What's that?
Paddles?
You could. They certainly look like paddles.
Crankset?
Or did you say paddles or pedals? You said paddles. So similar to that, these are pedals here, which you probably already knew. And these two parts here are called the crank arms. It's what allows you to leverage the gear around. It's what drives the bike. This whole system here, which includes the gears on the back, the chain, which I'll label. Sorry if this gets a little messy. So this is the chain here. You have the chainring on the front, you have the 2 crank arms and the 2 pedals. You also have this part here, which is called a derailleur. It's what actually moves the chain from gear to gear. It picks it up and moves it along, which is why it's called a derailleur. It sort of derails the chain, and that's how you actually shift, is with the derailleur. I'm going to attempt to spell it. It's a French word. I usually get it wrong. Hopefully I don't.
There's 2 correct ways to spell it.
I think it has 2
Yeah.
Something like that.
You spelled it, that's the French way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, derailleur. So this whole system here is called the drivetrain. Again, we have the front wheel. This part here is called the fork. The frame and the fork often go together, although they're technically 2 separate parts. We have the front brake caliper. And then sort of the last few parts at the top. This part here, does anyone know what that's called?
Stem?
Yep, that's called the stem. There are a couple there are 2 different types of stems. And we'll go into that in more detail when we do headsets, which is sort of the system within here. These 2 things, which in my drawing look like bunny ears, but they're actually the shift levers. There's a couple different kinds of levers. The sort of specific name of that type is usually dependent on where they're located on the bike. Older ones are going to have these sort of 2 levers here. These are called stem shifters because they're located on the stem, which is the kind that they have in the drawing. You can also have down tube shifters, which are located here. You can also, if you have handlebars that go straight out rather than the drop style handlebars like this, you can have thumb shifters or rapid fire shifters, which you would usually have on a hybrid or a mountain bike. You can also have sort of integrated STI shifters, which are attached to the brake levers, but we'll go into that in more detail in the future. And talking about the brake levers, you have the brake levers, which are right here, which activate both of the brakes, and you have 2, 1 for each. All right. Did I miss anything? Seems like you got it right. All right, great. So that's a basic overview of all the parts of the bikes. You don't necessarily have to remember the name of every single thing, but it's really useful to know this stuff, especially if you have your own bike and you bring it to have maintenance at a bike shop. It's good to know the names of everything because sometimes you'll come in and you know, say, hey, I have a problem with my tire, and you really have a problem with the rim or the tube or something, or
You
hey,
actually didn't label rim and
we're gonna do a whole thing on the wheels right after this. Or you say, oh, there's a problem with my handlebars, and you really mean there's a problem with your stem or something like that. So it's good to know the names of everything, and definitely hold on to that worksheet, and so you can remember it.